What happens when the world starts changing faster than the systems built to run it? Today's guest has spent her career inside the question, helping manufacturers, universities, policymakers, and public services adapt when optimization just isn't enough anymore. She works where innovation meets operations, where the strategy hits the shop floor, and where data has to lead to real change. Welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, a private market intelligence platform that's been supporting the global startup ecosystem for over 12 years. Through our university partnerships, we work with institutions driving innovation and entrepreneurship, and this series highlights the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host for today, and joining us is Professor Jillian, Associate Principal of Entrepreneurship and Enterprise at the University of Strathclyde. She's also the co-director of National Interact Network. Professor Jillian, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks very much for such a warm welcome, Harish.
Great. So before we dive into the serious system talk, right, a quick warm up. Say if there were an Olympics for innovation, and the events included fastest process breakdown, most dramatic spreadsheet, and the best excuse to avoid change. Who is taking home the gold? Manufacturing, academia, or the public sector?
Oh, jings. I think my interest really is about encouraging people to think differently, to have an entrepreneurial mindset. So a big thing that I've worked at all my life is making sure that people think about new ideas and can bring together resources to make change happen. So I don't see entrepreneurship just about being new venture creating. I think entrepreneurial mindset, we can encourage people to go into lots of different areas, whether that be the public sector, private sector, whether it be manufacturing, finance. I think there's entrepreneurial mindset everywhere. And I think today we're in a period where we're seeing huge change with technology. And I think we're all having to look at how we do things differently. So I'm not sure about who's going to cross the finish line first. I think there's good things going on in lots of different sectors, but I think my mission is to make sure we're ready for it.
Amazing. So let's zoom out a bit. You have spent your career at the intersection of innovation and operations, helping both startups and institutions rethink how they work. But where did this start? Like, what pulled you into the world of system change and a messy transformation?
Don't know how far back you want to go, Harish, but I think my university education started with an interdisciplinary program. So I did a program at Strathclyde University, which is where I am now. But I started out as a kind of young 18-year-old coming to Strathclyde, and I studied a course called Technology and Business Studies. And at that time, it's not that unusual nowadays, but at that time it was quite unusual to have a program that crossed kind of social science and science and engineering. So I studied a number of subjects and ended up with my specialist subjects being manufacturing and business management. So I've always been interested in these kind of that intersection, as you say. And then I went off and I worked in the IT industry for a while, and I saw the changes. And again, we're talking the late 80s, early 90s at this point. And I saw what was happening in organizations with, changes in computer systems. And that really made me interested in how organizations deal with change. And it's not always technology, it might be regulation, it might be competition. So that really kind of started my passion in these areas. And then I came back into university and I worked for a while as a researcher. And my area of interest was how universities are changing. So I did a project that was looking at how do we take technology that's developed in the university and do something useful with it. So how do we commercialize it? So at that point, I really got interested in things like around licensing. I got interested in spin-outs and startups and that kind of world. And I'm still interested in these things today. I ended up doing my PhD around university change, and I looked at how we re-engineer business models in universities. And again, we're talking some years ago, but there's a heck of a lot of that happening. at the moment across the globe. So from these points, I kind of, became an academic, went progressed through all the different lecturer, senior lecturer to professor. And I think I've always been interested in managing things. So I've done my fair share of academic leadership roles, whether that be director of research or head of department. I've been a vice dean for knowledge exchange. I've been deputy dean when I was down at York University in England. And nowadays I'm associate principal at Strathclyde, and I'm responsible for entrepreneurship and enterprise. So that's a kind of potted history of my kind of my career. It's a long time. But I think throughout the kind of taking on management roles, I've always kept my research going. And my research is very much grounded in this kind of innovation and dealing with innovation and how that translates into your business operations and how you change those. So yeah, I'm still a very active researcher. I've got 3 grants at the moment from UKRI, which is the UK Research and Innovation Office. So yeah, that's a potted history.
Very interesting. So one thing that stands out in your work is this idea of moving from optimization to adaptation, right? So that's not a small leap. What does that actually look like in practice?
Okay, again, I think one of my interests is making sure that people are always scanning the environment and thinking about change and what might be next. I mean, I started out, a lot of my research initially was around operations management, and I get that a lot of people are trying to be the best they can in today's environment and, build processes that fit today. But I think we're in such a changing world, and there's very few sectors that don't have change as a constant. So I think you've always got to be thinking about scanning the environment, thinking about your future self as well as your today self. And I think that dynamic capability, the ability to be able to scan for what changes are afoot and think about your place in the world, and also think about how do you get the resources together to think about what the future might look like and make it happen. That's very much what I'm all about. So I do that with small companies. I do a lot of work with smaller companies. There's a scheme in the UK called the KTP scheme. Again, it's a programme UK government encourages small companies to work with universities to deal with change initiatives, big projects. So I do a lot of work with small companies, but equally I've done work with like huge international companies, and we're all dealing with the same issues. But I think the entrepreneurial mindset and getting everybody to think about their place and how they can help facilitate change is a key aspect.
Interesting. And most people think innovation is about shiny new tech, right? But your work emphasizes the people side, the social, emotional, and operational stuff. Can you talk about about why that matters more than we give it credit for?
I'm very passionate about that. I mean, given my background, I get excited about technology, I do get excited about technology, but I think too often we think technology is the answer to things. And actually, the human element is so important. So a project I'm involved in just now, one of my research projects, you referred to the Interact network. And Interact came out, again, UK government funding, and they have a big programme called Made Smarter Innovation. And the idea behind that is it's funding that helps manufacturers in the UK to adopt digital technologies. Now, a lot of the focus of these programmes has been about technology. So things around AI, things around smart materials, things around robotics and so on. And all very, very important. But the Interact network really kind of focuses on the human aspect. And what we're doing through Interact is we're trying to make sure that we're pulling all the insights we can from the social sciences. So there's lots of really interesting research in business schools, in history departments, in psychology, public sector leadership, all these kind of areas. There's great insights that we can also use and apply within manufacturing and within technology. So that's what Interact's about, is about putting people and the human element at the heart. So, I mean, I'm constantly saying technology isn't enough, it's important, but unless you think about the human element, your big technology projects aren't going to give you the desired outcomes.
Very true. And what do you think about some common myths about productivity that you would love to see retired, especially in the age of digital transformation and remote everything?
Oh gosh, productivity. Again, I've done quite a lot of work around kind of productivity, and I
Yes.
think it's a really important topic. I think it means different things to different people. And I did a little bit of research on this a few years back. That I think when you speak to people in different sectors, they've got different attitudes to productivity. And if you speak to some people, they think about productivity as getting things out the door. How do we get more goods out the door? And that's in a lot of people's heads. But for other people, what they're thinking about is how can we do more but with less resource? Again, it depends on your circumstance. Some people are more focused on these constraints and how can we deal with the constraints. And I think other people get the fact that innovation is so important, that you're really only going to address productivity if you do things differently. And again, you unleash that kind of human thought and get everybody thinking about how can I do things differently? So, I think there's productivity at a day-to-day individual level, and there's productivity at scale. And I think we need to make sure that we're doing the little things that help us with the big gains.
Very interesting. One wildcard question. So you're designing a new entrepreneurship course from the scratch. So what's one topic that must be in the curriculum, but usually that isn't in any university or educational institutions?
Okay, well, I've already said I think we need to move away from just thinking about entrepreneurship as people who want to start businesses. So at Strathclyde, we focus very much on entrepreneurial mindset. So getting people to think in an innovative manner, to unleash potential and think about driving change, becoming change makers, thinking not just about opportunity, but thinking about how we assemble resources to make things happen. So I think that entrepreneurial mindset is something that I'm passionate about, but Strathclyde is very much leading on. I think it's certainly in the UK.
Very interesting. And zooming into the students and faculty inside the campus, when you meet students or any faculty trying to spark innovation, what's one mindset shift you wish you could gift wrap them and hand it to them?
Oh gosh. Oh, I think at Strathclyde we talk about the entrepreneurial Strathclyder, and we talk about the things that we really want to encourage, both in our staff and our students. So we want people that can think differently, can use innovation tools. We want people who are good communicators. We want people who are resilient, because when you're doing things differently, you'll get knocked along the way. So I think some of these kind of traits, well, you might call them traits, but they're also things that I think we can teach people, and we can encourage them to think differently. So yeah, that would probably be my starting point. There's not one thing, but I think there's multiple things there.
Interesting. And where do you see the role of universities in entrepreneurship evolving next?
Oh, so I think universities are really crucial. I see universities as being really important for developing the economy. I think universities are very important for in a social context as well. And I think Strathclyde kind of sees itself as that kind of change maker in lots of different ways. So I think that kind of encouraging this kind of mindset, encouraging people to think differently, I think that's important. And what I'm seeing in our student population, and I think it's true in lots of places in the world, is I think we're seeing students that care. So I think we're seeing lots of students that want to get involved in social innovation and social entrepreneurship as well. And I think one of the things we're doing at Strathclyde is developing the entrepreneurial mindset, but also giving students an opportunity to get involved. So lots of things that we do at Strathclyde, students get opportunities to get involved in, industry challenges, business challenges, but also I think more and more we're giving them opportunities to get involved in social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And I'm seeing students from all over the world who really are getting excited about this kind of type of change.
Very amazing. You are involved in some seriously impactful work, right? So, for our viewers who want to follow what you are up to, where's the best place to find your research or projects?
Oh gosh. So me personally, I've got three research projects on the go just now. So there's the Interact work, which is all about the human side of digital transformation. And if people want to find out about that, there's a website, the Interact website, which is www.interact-hub.org. So that's one that's on the top of my head. You can look at that. I've got two other projects that I'm involved in just now that are both about sustainability. And again, it's this kind of driving change in organizations, and an awful lot of organizations are thinking about how they become more sustainable, about circular economies. So I've got a project called Remake Value Retention Centre, which is a big project, again, funded by UKRI. And that's all about how we encourage manufacturers of big kind of critical infrastructure projects to think differently and think about how do we recycle and remanufacture things. So if you think, for example, about, we're doing a lot just now trying to change our energy systems and our transport systems, and even our defence and military infrastructure. But a lot of these things require us to make stuff, to manufacture things, whether that be wind turbines, whether that be new train systems. But if you think about the downside of that, it means we're taking natural resources, we're having to dig things out of the ground, we're having to manufacture, use energy to do that. So in a way, we're gaining in terms of energy, we're gaining in terms of transportation, but we're actually causing damage through that manufacturing process. And what the Remake Value Retention Centre is saying is, can we not change people's mindset so that some of the parts we design these things right in the first place, so that we can reuse parts? We're not constantly taking big complex engineered things and putting them to landfill, but instead we're becoming much more circular. So that's something that I think is exciting, and it involves not just manufacturing companies, but involves a change in mindset for people that are financing things, entrepreneurs that are coming into bringing in new technologies, for example. So yeah, that's an interesting one. And the third project I'm involved in is a project called Systems Approaches to Net Zero, which again is using my kind of background of operations and systems thinking. And again, looking at this problem of sustainability and circularity. And again, like the example I just gave, everything we do has a consequence further down the line. So we've got to think of the overall system and not just shift the problem somewhere else. So that's a project that's been led by Linda Newens at the University of Bath. And we're quite early stages at that one, but some interesting stuff about to come out of that.
Very interesting. And lastly, if you had to summarize your philosophy in one sentence, what would that sentence be?
Oh gosh, my philosophy, I think, is probably that, change is everywhere. You've got to be ready for it. So I think looking ahead, thinking about change, and building a process for innovation, whether that be you as an individual or whether that be as a company. But I think if you've got a process to deal with it, you're far better equipped to deal with this change that is going to happen.
Very interesting. Professor Jillian, thank you very much. This was equal parts enlightening and energizing. Thank you for the deep dive into innovation, the future of work, and what it means to build systems that actually adopt, right? So looking forward to watching more of your work shape the future and hopefully catching up again soon.
Super. Thanks very much. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. See you.
Bye.